Yo, what up, YouTube? It's your host, Yucca. This is the No Pigeons podcast. And I'd like to tell y'all that the older I get, the more conservative I become. When I was young, I was just a young, dumb, raging liberal, And I just felt like a victim. I was so mad at the world for how I grew up and how I was raised and blase. I listened to rap music that further brainwashed me to tell me this and that. I still love rap music, but now I kind of reflect on the old school rap because I still listen to some new school stuff too. I like some Johnny Cinco and you know what I'm saying? Yeah. A few years ago, I found out about Thomas Sowell, and I watched a few things of his. I videos and interviews. I bought a book or two, but here's a video that I have not seen, so I wanted to check it out with y'all. It's called Thomas Sowell, Vision of the Woke. Let's check this out. Uh-oh.
World, due to the fact that a vision that the problems that we see in the world are due to the fact that other people are just not as bright or as compassionate as they are, and that there are all these solutions out there waiting to be discovered, and that they have them, and that these solutions are to be imposed upon the rest of us by the power of government through taxation.
He talking about socialists, leftists? What's he talking about? Because it sounds like he's talking about them.
In other ways. And what's really crucial about it is that their passion is so much greater than the passion on the other side, largely because what they have involved is more.
Who is the they?
Oh, the
Illuminati
elite, the academic elite, political elites, and the reason we can talk about their vision, even though
don't forget the purple hair gang. Don't forget the purple hair gang, because they sit there regurgitating every talking point, every dismissive title that they can throw at you. They will, right?
They vary in their opinions. Is that the basic set of underlying assumptions about the world are very similar. And because these assumptions are the prevailing assumptions, the need to find evidence for them or to offer proof is much less. If something happens, they'll explain it in a way which will fit that vision. For example, when they find that prenatal care is less among blacks than among whites, and that infant mortality rates are higher,
what they do, they automatically blame racism. That's the first thing they do. When they see a disparity, a racial disparity, they automatically blame racism. That goes from a lot of these thespians, let's call them, the black thespian groups, the LGBTizzles in every group, every direction, the leftists, the purple hairs, all of them, they all blame racism immediately without further looking into it. And that just tells you how very shallow thinking they are. They're very surface based. You know what I'm saying?
They immediately assume this is because of society's neglect, and therefore, if only the government will step in and provide more prenatal care, that problem solves itself.
More government. That's always the answer, huh? More government. It's like, I'm still bleeding. Put a Band-Aid on top of that Band-Aid, and that'll solve why you keep getting cut. Because the Band-Aids are going to fix that.
But in reality, other groups have even less prenatal care than blacks and don't have any more infant mortality than whites. But they don't ever get to that second stage, because once they've seen something that fits their conception of how the world works,
their narrative,
that's sort of the end of it.
Let me go back to that idea of who the they is.
So you got the New York Times, the Washington Post, Harvard, Stanford, all the usual suspects. I think that when people say things like, more American wives are battered on Super Bowl Sunday, you see, than any other time of the year. And
I seen something about that a couple years back. I seen something about it. I don't know what that was. Maybe I'm mixing something else with something else up, but I remember hearing something about a story about, or a statistic about women getting battered during a certain time of the year. You know what I mean? Of course, they try to blame that on men and toxic masculinity, and you know what I'm saying? They love to do that because they love to have these weirdly dismissive, we found, they love to point. They get their little witch hunts, and then they point, and then they say, yeah, this is the target. This is what's causing it, and we just gonna pull full force in this direction with our media power and our celebrities and our music. All you know what I'm saying? They're memes. A lot of these leftists, they live off of memes. You know what I mean? That's where they get their main source of information is memes, and you can tell from the way they talk and the terminology they use. And when you try to debate them, their intelligence and their arguments don't go past the four the four sentences that they seen on a meme. It doesn't get deeper than that, you know. And I've seen it once. I love to debate. I've seen that one too many times. So,
and there's not a speck of evidence for that. That is calculated. Because there is no data that could even be misinterpreted that way. In other words, because there is no data, period. And so, yes, but I think that 99% of the people who believe it are not calculating. And I think one of the reasons that it flies without even
Tell them, Thomas,
for evidence is that there is a certain vision of how the world is, and in that world, men are oppressing women. And therefore, when you say something like this, it fits the vision, and that's the end of it. There's no demand for evidence. There's a four-stage pattern, and in the first stage is what I call the crisis. And so we're hyped to believe that something is a terrible crisis for which something must be done.
Hold up, let me rewind that shit because it went over my head for a second.
There's a four-stage pattern.
Okay.
And the first stage is what I call the crisis.
Okay.
And so we're hyped to believe that something is a terrible crisis for which something must be done.
Kind of like the Black Lives Matter situation. Okay.
What was fascinating to me in doing the research for the book is that very often the thing that's said to be in crisis has often been getting better for years on end, but that gets ignored. Then the second stage is,
for example, infant
we on number 2 now.
mortality, to use one of the
well,
things
I'm thinking about teenage pregnancy and venereal disease. Those things were getting better.
So that's like the crisis, right? They find something. They find the one crisis to.
Teenage pregnancy was going down
point.
for more than a decade before sex education was introduced. Venereal disease, syphilis in 1960s had only half the incidence that it had in 1950. So all these things are going down. Yet we're said to need sex education to deal with this crisis, which is then manufactured. And again, this is where the calculated part comes in. Now, 99% of the people who hear this don't know that. But the reason they accept it is because they also share the same vision, and because this is consonant with that.
But that's why I'm always weary of statistics. You know, I last year when I went to New Orleans, I read this book. I have this book somewhere in my collection called "How to Lie Through Statistics." I forgot the author, but he breaks down how people use how large groups use statistics to lie to us. Right, more common than not, and everything from using mean, median, and mode to not factoring in certain variables. You know what I'm saying? They really deceive us with statistics. And a lot of times when people debate you and they want to just throw out statistics, a lot of times it's because they don't know shit or they're just lying through their teeth, right? But that's why I'm very weary of statistics, unless I'm listening to an economist like Mr. Thomas Sowell, Dr. Thomas Sowell.
That vision, they don't have to ask for evidence.
All right, so what stage?
Not to mention he's got some fly glasses too.
Stage two is
the first one is there's a crisis.
Yes.
They establish a crisis, usually an artificial one.
Yes. Okay. Then stage two is the solution. You have a solution to the crisis. In this case, you have sex.
And yeah, they come up with their bullshit leftist solution, which is not a proven solution, but they push it on us. They push it down our throats. And if you go against it, they find a new word to use, like anti-vaxxer, like a transphobe, like a homophobe, like racist. They use a new word to dismiss you. They don't really argue your point. They try to stop you from even debating it, right? Which is fucking crazy, but that's the world we live in now. And that's why I can no longer, I'm talking to a girl, I was talking to a girl today, and she said to me, like, are you a Republican or something? And I was like, no, I don't really go by any kind of party or nothing like that. I think myself to be apolitical, but I'm very engulfed in politics when it comes to like just my day-to-day learning and stuff and watching, but I wouldn't call myself a Republican by any means. But I definitely look down on a lot of leftists and Democrats nowadays because I don't think they question their vote. You know what I mean? I really don't think they question their vote. I think they just vote, you know, they just vote a certain way and indiscriminately they just keep doing it no matter what news comes out of Biden with his dealings in China and the Ukraine, or he could be classified as a pedo and they wouldn't care. Their main focal point is as long as it's Trump bad. What do they call that? Trump derangement syndrome, right? Where no matter what, they just wanted Trump out of office. No matter what he's evil. They don't question. They don't research. They don't cross-reference. They just, whatever the media tells them negative about Trump, they accept it wholeheartedly, right? They never question it, which is crazy, but that's the world we live in.
Education in the schools. And then at that point, you say, if we do this, this will lead to beneficial result A. The critics say, no, it'll lead to detrimental result Z. Stage 3, you put it in the results, you put it in, and directly you find detrimental result Z, namely venereal disease and teenage pregnancy take off into the stratosphere.
Yep.
And then stage 4 is the fascinating part, in which they simply say, no, that doesn't prove that this.
That's like vaccines, right? When he's talking about stage 3, what happened? The vaccine didn't stop transmission. It didn't prevent deaths or anything. It had very little effect, and that's all that's coming out now, right? To the point where a lot of these so-called leftist intellectuals, they're struggling to debate it. So what they're doing is they're rationalizing it and they're justifying the push for the vax, right? And so, yeah, I guess he's classifying that as stage 3, right?
It was a bad policy because there are many factors. There's complexity. It's simplistic to blame it on this. But they run through this routine on so many different things, including crime. Similarly, they said, in 1960, Judge Bazelon said we just desperately need to have some kind of change in the criminal justice system. Now, in 1960, there were fewer murders than there had been in 1950, 1940, or 1930.
Uh-oh.
But
And
again,
it's
that
only
was
gotten
completely
worse.
ignored. And so now we have the revolution in the criminal justice system. People say, no, if you have to put these new things in, there'll be more crime than before. They put them in. Almost instantly, the declining crime rate turns around and heads up again.
Spikes.
And they say, no, it's simplistic to blame this on this. There are the root causes and the neglect of society and all the rest of it. So it's heads I win, tails you lose.
You think the increase in venereal disease was caused by sex education?
I don't have to even say that. I don't even have to believe that. All I have to say is
do you?
Y'all know what the increase in venereal disease is now? It's that motherfucking Tinder, that Hinge, that Bumble, that POF, that what other ones? eHarmony. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole lot of these dating sites and motherfuckers. They ain't it's not for dating. It's not for dating, and the people behind it, the CEOs, they all know it's not for dating. They know what people are using it for. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I think it's hard to explain otherwise. I mean, you don't get social changes that drastic in a few years without some particular cause. But the argument doesn't depend on that at all. The point is they created the crisis artificially. The evidence shows there was no crisis, but they would not even subject it to any empirical test. If they want to show some other factor came in and really caused this, I'm happy to hear that.
Now, why would a group of liberal intellectuals or politicians or media stars or whatever, why would they sit around and decide to dismember or dilute the criminal justice system if they thought in advance that it would raise the amount of criminality?
I don't know what his answer is, but my theory to that question, I think they just want to destroy society as we know it. You know what I'm saying? Like I think their concerns are far more on sexuality and sexual liberation. They don't care about the ramifications of the things that they do. You know what? I can't even say. I can't figure out what drives them. I know when I was a leftist, I just felt like, oh no, like the government is trying to. I thought the right leaning people were trying to do more big government. You know what I'm saying? I felt like they were the ones that were because of larger crime sentences and stuff like that. But the Democrats were a part of that too, right? They were a big part of the 95 or 93 crime bill? Was it 95? I don't know, but I paused this thinking I had some kind of answer, but I really don't. So let's go back to Thomas, because Thomas is the OG. He's got something to say. So what's his answer to I don't even remember what the question was.
They didn't think that, but the point is
They just thought wrongly that it would help.
Yes, but it would also
why they would
give
do
them
that?
an enormously larger role than they had before. I mean, a judge who just sits there and applies the laws that have been passed by the legislature has a very minor role.
Okay.
But if he takes the expansive judicial activist role, then of course he's on the leading edge. Similarly with the war on poverty, you can show how dependency on government was going down, poverty was going down before this program was ever put in. And within a few years, dependence on government was going up. And
I'm guessing taxes went up too, right? They can further justify raising your tax rates.
After a few more years, the absolute number of people in poverty was going up. This was sold to the country not on the grounds that if you transferred money from A to B, that B would have more money. That was not the argument. The argument was that dependency would be reduced. This will then, you give them job training and all those kinds of things, parenting skills, the whole bit. And this will then be an investment that will pay off in the future because there'll be fewer people dependent upon the government than there were before. And I go through a great number of people from John F. Kennedy to Lyndon Johnson, the New York Times.
And now the argument is just that, you know, people need it. It's just be humane. People need it. You know what I'm saying? Which the largest recipients of government assistance are single mothers, right? Just women in general. And it's like, maybe you should get married. Maybe having a two-person relationship, you know, spousals. I was about to say spousal support, but that's a derogatory term. But having a relationship, you know, two people in a relationship, you know, where one person at home could take care of the home stuff and one person could be working, you know, and work together to build something, build it, maybe not necessarily an empire, but build something, build a foundation to grow from, right? But instead we have people divided. We have a people divided, and a lot of single mothers out here just kind of living that life. But you know what I'm saying? You can't do that alone. I hate to say it, but you can't do that alone, because no matter what you need, men, whether you need an electrician to fix your wiring, or a cable guy to set this up, you need a plumber to fix up your plumbing, and you know what I'm saying? A mechanic to fix up your car. You know what I mean? There was a time when the husband would come in and at least try to fix the shit to save up on money. Now it's just a certified, you're paying. You're certified paying. You know what I mean? Anyways.
Again, all the usual suspects. The first order of business is to evade the criterion that they themselves set up when they set this out. And so no matter what happens, if it's a failure by the original
they're never
criterion,
guilty.
Then we just find another criterion by which it will be a success.
A lot of the things.
So they switched the goal, right? That was kind of what they're doing with the vid right now, right? That a lot of the shit they said flopped. A lot of it was a failure. You know, Biden said if you get that injection, you won't even catch it. You can't even catch it, which was a lie. It was a bold-faced lie, right? So they switched the goalpost and they say, no, well, it's preventing deaths, and it's lowering deaths, and it's doing this, and it's less. It's releasing pressure on the hospitals and blase, but it's just they always stretching the goalpost and they always lying.
That came out of the Great Society. Building all those junior colleges and community colleges.
Oh, I would disagree entirely. I think that was a tragedy of the first magnitude.
That was a tragedy.
Yes.
Why is that a tragedy?
You have millions of people who have absolutely no desire for an education, using up billions of dollars of the taxpayers' money, and not only not getting an education themselves, making it more difficult to give an education to those people who came to college with an idea of getting one.
Now, you say they have no desire for an education.
Yeah, now in college, people don't even get educations at college. They just kind of, they do a whole lot of protesting. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I never went to college, and I always low-key wanted to go to like a college or university, you know, but you know what I'm saying? I never really did, but I can only imagine going to school now and just seeing all these like safe spaces and protests and people that are just so much more focused on their self-identity than getting an education and getting a career that'll actually take them somewhere in life. And you know what's funny? You notice how women are the most educated now? Women exceed men by a large leap in education, and then all of a sudden, we're looking for student loan forgiveness? You think there's a correlation there, or I'm just being a sexist or something? I don't know.
I mean, nobody is herding them into these community colleges and into the junior colleges and into the state university. I mean, they have a desire, obviously.
No, they do not, obviously, because lots of things go on in those places that are not education. I mean, where else can you find so many young people of the same age and opposite sex in one place? A nice, convenient place to be.
Whole lot of
Anyone
fucking.
who is taught in a lot of these places, this ferocious desire for education as such is not terribly visible.
Damn, this was in 95. I just had to look into that. This was done in 95 and it's still relevant today, right? Just to show you that, like, although things have changed drastically, we're still dealing with the same crisis, the same problems. You know, we're still dealing with the same problems. You know, they're just a little more magnified now, a little more radical. You know what I'm saying? We put the power into the hands of the children for some reason, which is being held up like Apollo by leftists. Leftists are put, because they know that children, not children, but the kids, the younger adults, they tend to vote Democrat because they're voting with their hearts, and the Republicans, the people that are older, start voting with their brain, right? Because they start realizing, oh shit, I got bills to pay, right? All these young idiots that swayed the election for Biden, and because they said it was a record numbers of kids coming out to vote. Well, look at inflation now. Look at the war in Ukraine. Look at society now. You know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers can't even afford to buy a house. This is what you voted for, though. This is what and the same thing in Canada with Trudeau, right? And people, what did they think they were voting for? For trans rights? That's what you were voting for? You based your vote on trans rights? Is that what you based your vote on? It's crazy.
Set up a society where you have to be credentialed with a certain amount of college. So aren't they able to get a better job?
No,
because
this
of their
is the fallacy of composition.
The fallacy of composition. Hope y'all don't mind. I'm going to Google that. Give me a second, y'all. Fallacy of composition. The fallacy of composition consists in treating a distributed characteristic as if it were collective. It occurs when one makes the mistake of attributing to a group or a whole some characteristic that is truly only of its individual members or its parts, and then makes inferences based on that mistake. Oh, let me see an example. It occurs when when one argues that something must be true of the whole because it is true of some parts of the whole. Trees are made of atoms, and atoms are not visible to the eye. Therefore, trees are not visible to the eye either. Okay, I kind of get what he's saying. Yeah, kind of went over my head, but let's go.
You know, if one person stands up in the stadium, he sees the game better. But if they all stand up, they don't all see the game better. As long as, you know,
that's true.
If you have a degree and the other guy doesn't, then you get ahead of him in the employment line. But we're not going to all get ahead of each other in the employment line by all getting degrees.
We have to get more people into the education system because that's the way to compete.
I tried to explain that to my buddy. He's a drywaller, and I explained to him that you know how AI is slowly taking away all our jobs, and I told him, and he's like, oh yeah, whatever, robots ain't gonna take my job. And I was like, it's happening before our eyes. You go to any of these grocery stores where they used to have 12 lanes open for registers, and now it's 2 open and all self-checkout, right? And you're seeing this everywhere. You're seeing this now. They have vending machines that pump out pizzas and burgers and stuff, right? And so in his mind, he said, no, well, that's not going to affect my job as a drywaller. And I said, yes, it will, because if the majority of people don't have jobs, why do you think that your drywalling skills are so exceptional that other people won't take your job? Now you're in direct competition with millions of more people, right? But whatever, he wasn't trying to hear it. It went over his head. It's all good, but.
And we look at the data and we see that the people with more education are earning more money than ever before relative to the people with less education. That's all a fallacy of everybody standing up in the stadium.
People who fly on the Concorde, kids who've flown on the Concorde undoubtedly will make more money than kids who've only gone on buses. That does not mean if we put a lot of people on the Concorde, we're going to raise the national income.
Tell them.
You can't blame the crime rate on the fact that there's more poverty. There's less poverty. There's more affluence.
Well,
it's not due to foreigners because, as you say, we've won the Cold War. All the normal things that you might blame all this on aren't there. It's not because of diseases, because science has conquered more diseases. It's all because of self-inflicted wounds. And I'm saying these are the people who inflicted those wounds.
That
victimhood. We shouldn't listen to them anymore.
That victimhood. That intersectional victimhood, right? That these feminists and these LGBTs and these BLMs push, that intersectionality and all that nonsense, right? That's exactly what he's saying. It's a self-inflicted wound.
What are the nature of those wounds?
Crime.
No.
The disintegration of the family.
Yeah.
The disintegration of the educational system.
Yeah.
And it's not going to matter. We'll be like the man who gained the whole world and lost his soul.
Is there a common root to all of those problems?
It's the notion that ordinary people cannot be trusted to make the decisions that they've been making, but these must be preempted either by judges in the case of crime, by the schools taking over the indoctrination of other people's children behind their back.
And how much worse has that gotten today, huh? Whether now they're pushing for children to self-identify their sexualities against the will of the parents, and telling them, convincing them to not tell their parents. That shit is crazy. I don't even have kids in this world yet, but that's I never wanted to have to homeschool my children, but this shit is crazy. Like,
and against their protests, or what was the other one? The family taking money from the tax.
What family? That shit don't exist no more. That's archaic. Having a mother and a father, that's archaic, right?
Taxpayers and subsidizing behavior, as well as encouraging it and legitimizing behavior that has turned out to be enormously self-destructive, undermining the family in 1,000 different ways.
You make this vigorous attack in the Vision of the Anointed that we should no longer listen to these people.
The Vision of the Anointed. I haven't read that one yet. I need to get that book. You know what, man? I wouldn't mind getting a whole. I always wanted to have a library. You know, just have a nice little set of books. Like, you know, right now I probably have like not a lot. I probably have like 150 books, maybe 125. But I always wanted to have one of them library rooms with the sliding ladder. Ooh, you know, motherfuckers come to visit me because I've been out hiding with a Sherlock pipe and a cardigan, and they come visit me, and I stop the ladder like, hey, I got visitors. You know, I want to live that life, but have a farm too.
People, that's sort of the debate. They've been wrong. They don't prove their points. It's hurt us. Who should we listen to?
Michael Jackson.
We should listen first and foremost to our own experience. You seem to act as if there must be alternative saviors. We should stop looking for saviors. I mean, the society has not existed for thousands of years because it had a succession of saviors. It's existed because it has institutions and processes through which people can realize their own goals.
No, I understand that, but you are attacking people who would like to lead us and tell us how the world works.
No, they don't want to tell us how the world works. They want to take over the decision for us. They don't tell the parents how they ought to teach sex education to their children. They put this material in the schools behind the backs of the parents with instructions not to let the parents see it.
Yep. And that's crazy. That's crazy that he says that was a thing then. I didn't even know that, but that's a thing now. 95, I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old and I was causing trouble. I was making troubles. You know what I mean? And that is not an understatement. But yeah, that's crazy. I didn't know that wasn't even a thing. It's crazy how every generation it's kind of the same thing happening, but to deeper and deeper extents. Like it's just getting worse and worse and worse, you know. And unfortunately, now they use our children to push it even further, right? They indoctrinate the children, and then they say, hey, let the children go about and do their thing. And as you as a parent, you can't discipline them. You can't, you know what I'm saying? You can't question them. I mean, there was that father in Vancouver that he misgendered his daughter or son or whatever, and I heard they trying to give him they charge him $30K. It's crazy. It's fucking crazy what's going on in this world, right? But I don't know, man. For those in the comments or those watching, like and subscribe and comment if you agree, comment if you disagree. Let me know what you think, and you know what I'm saying? I'm here, so holla at me. Peace.